Hi, I'm Donna Dewberry. I want to welcome you to the Plaid Let's Paint Studio, where we're going to be painting the November wreath of the month. This month we're going to be painting our fall wreath, and we're featuring warm colors that will be perfect for our big magnolia. We're going to have fall seed pods and lots of assorted greenery. When you get through painting this wreath, it will be beautiful, hung on your front door for all those November guests. And our Let's Paint FolkArt One Stroke Wreath of the Month program, we're going to learn techniques and simple strokes that are going to make it easy for floral painting, for greenery, tips and tricks that makes it easy for you to accomplish the wreaths we paint each month. So each month as we're painting these, you're going to like how easy it is to create something beautiful to hang in your house. So what I want to share with you is that we have created at Plaid a wonderful kit that's going to have everything you need to create your wreath of the month. You're going to have wonderful, luscious FolkArt multi-surface paint, and you even have a little gift of treasure gold in there. And we have the FolkArt One Stroke painter sponges and our basic 10 brushes. So besides that, we have a teaching guide for every month, which has actual size strokes that you practice on, wipe off, and practice again each month. Also, what Plaid has created for us to make it even easier is we have wreaths that we're going to have different shapes of, and these are all birch plywood. They already are pre-drilled. You can have this wreath this way or a diamond shape. We have round and oval wreaths, and the beauty of it is that you can flip it over and paint on each side. So that saves how many wreaths you need. Whether you want them inside or outside, you're going to have a nice time painting these surfaces. So I also want to share with you that we have a wonderful group and that is on Facebook, and it's a community of painters. And to get to that group, I'd like you to go to Let's Paint with Plaid. Now, if you're ready, I'm ready to go paint our November wreath right now. For November, I love using large magnolias, great looking seed pods, and a little jack-o'-lantern looking little pods that hang. I think those are fun. So let's get started showing you the streaked looking background that I'm going to put in this wreath. And as we always do, we work from the back forward and show you how much fun this lesson is going to be together. So I'm going to move this over and let's get started on my wreath. I'm going to turn the holes. We've got the double holes on this birch plywood. We have taken and changed it to be painted at a diamond. All right. So the streaks would go this way. If you were doing it this way, the streaks would be going down. Okay. So I'm going to show you that what you're going to do is base coat one base coated some neutral color that you might have, one base coated coat. It raises the grain, and then you can go back with a sanding block. I've even used the back side of my painter sponges and made sure that there's no raised grain on here so that it paints really nice and smooth. Now, having this coat on the birch wood, the birch plywood soaks up the paint. So what we're going to do is put those coats so we're ready to then come in and sponge the paint that we're going to put on here. Now, what I did for this wreath is I used some burnt umber, some pueblo, and some yellow ochre. All right, and my sponge is got a teeny bit of water, which I put my fingers and I rubbed it on here so that we don't saturate the sponge. I did clean the sponge, so it's got a little bit of dampness. If that happens to you, just squeeze it in a paper towel. And I'm going to be talking to all of you who might just be brand new beginners, and any of you who are seasoned painters are going to get the same instruction, because you can always learn something each time when you're painting, when you have a lesson that you've never done before. So I'm going to pick up some burnt umber, some pueblo, and even some yellow ochre. All right, so I'm gonna, remember we said that since it's at a diamond, I'm gonna move the strokes this way, and I'm doing streaks. So you would think about when you have something light on the background, some of those streaks are going to show through. And so I'm going to push, and if I really lightly do it, you get one look. I'm going to pick up all three colors. Now look what happens if I push hard. Okay, so you decide. I didn't want it too dark. I'm going to for sure come back and do all my edges, but for the sake of time right now, we're just going to go ahead and paint the top. Okay. And I have a few little tricks that we're going to do to the background also, but we're going to do that after we get into our painting. Okay, so I'm going to pull this way, and then I don't want to start in the middle to go the rest of the way. So I want to show you a little trick I do. Over here we're fine, we're going back and forth. And then over here, let's push this up a little bit and get all my colors again. All right. Now what I want to do is now start down here. I think we need some more brown up here though. A little bit more. Okay. But try to pull as much as you can without those stopping motions. And see, when I stop, I didn't stop a straight line. It's striated. So when I come in here, I can start down here and pull back into it. All right. We just don't want a hard line. Okay, there we go. And you want to do this pretty quick, because what starts happening is that the paint will start drying. The first skim on the top will start drying, and then when you go back over it, it's going to lift it and go all the way down to the base coat. So it's easier to do it as we go like this. Now I'm going to leave it just like this, and then we're going to put all the painting on. And if you see any spot in the middle, you can then, after it all dries, go and touch it up if you want to, but not now. All right. Now I'm going to fold this up. I'm going to put it inside until we are through, so I can go wash it. And we're going to start looking at our design and what we're going to do first. And that is going to be the wreath part. Okay. So I'm going to, you can use, by the way, when you're doing that finish, you can use a 3/4 or you can use your painter sponge. I like using the sponge to get a fast look across here. Now what I want to share with you on the reusable teaching guides is we're going to practice all of these strokes as we go. So we practice it and we paint it right then. And here's our pods, our leaves of different kinds. There's all sorts of leaves on this back side. But the first thing I want you to look at is the grapevine. And see how we hung it on the diamond here? We're going to take that grapevine and I put it all the way around. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my 3/4, and I do have a little bit of this color left from the background, and I'm going to use the same colors in here, but I'm going to come inside just a little bit and go around the outside. All right, so this gives me just a placement to then go back and do my grapevine. Oops, I got some of this there. See the placement? It comes in just a little bit, and my scallops show all around the edge. Now I can also take I'm gonna dampen the sponge a little bit. This is my smaller painter sponge. And I can come around. I was going to use the rest of that paint up. Let me put a little bit more out. Okay, so what's going to happen is I can pick up the Pueblo, those other colors I have. And what I want is the dark underneath, so when I put the grapevine around, it's going to give it depth. But it doesn't have to be perfect here because we're going to have grapevines all over it. All right, there we go. I'm going to put this one in the water also. And we are going to be ready for our grapevines. Now we can load it with the 3/4. I loaded it, And then I practice right across the top of this, all the way around to get that feeling. And then you can practice right here too and see how that stroke works. Everything and written instructions on the colors and the directions are all going to be there, okay? Now, when I'm doing this, let's move it right here so we're ready to fill in that wreath. And I have my paints all out. You can also fan it really quick or use a blow dryer. And I have put out the colors on here. So I have the 3 colors mostly I'm going to use with the wreath, and that is your burnt umber, pueblo, and yellow ochre. So I also have the FolkArt floating medium in the middle, which is the fluff that's inside the paint with no pigment. So I'm going to go in between these two. Let's go right here. And I can kind of pick up half and half on there. Come over here, work it all in. The more you get it inside the bristles, the better. A little bit more. I want lots of paint, and I'll get some medium so it moves. And then let's dip some yellow ochre in there. Okay? Now I want to put my guide. Always remember, if you keep this guide here, it's going to help you see what you're supposed to be doing. All right? And it refreshes your memory on that. Now I'm going to kind of start on one side and go around, and since you saw me just do that, instead of going with the light color first, the dark brown's going to follow. We want to go with the dark brown first, the burnt umber, so that the yellow ochre and the pueblo are coming last, which are going to be showing the most. What follows is the predominant color. Okay, so I'm going to keep picking up my color, and I'm going to wind it around, leading with the burnt umber. So I'm going to come around. Let's get some more yellow ochre. All right. Now you'll find that I come out here and do some wandering burnt umber here and there. And we put a lot of pretty pods and leaves and stuff around the edges. So all I want you to think about is, what if a little spot here peeps out? We want it to look natural with some grapevine. Now what I did do is have some areas where I really had the vine coming out. Like look, as this winds around here, I had some that are just really light little vines coming through here, and our ribbon and all is going to be there, but I just made sure that I have this little bit coming in here and there. I know now, because I already did it once, where I went back and added more later. All right, so you're going to continue around here, and I'm going to go back to leading with the brown, the burnt umber. So a little bits of grapevine. It's also pretty. We're going to use some treasure gold in this a little bit later. You could even add a little bit to your wreath area, but all that will be when you find out what shows actually pops through here. All right, so we're going to go all the way around, adding the grapevine. All right, so what's going to happen after this point is that I came in and put some big leaves in here. I also wanted to draw out where, which is going to help us to draw out where the magnolia is going to go. And so let's take our chalk and decide where we're going to put that, because that determines on how much more that I want here and there. This is a good version of what you're going to see with the wreath. And I've got this big magnolia that's going to go all the way here. Really nice large one. And so I'm just going to have petals that come around. All right, and having some dark underneath also makes it look really pretty when you're all done, because of shading, makes shading through the flower itself. I also put some pods, and the pods are seed pods, so they're really big and nice. I put one right in here, so it's an oval because you're seeing it tilted. And we've got one there, one there. I put another, remember my triangle I like to do? Triangle of design is what I call it. So we've got one that comes in here. So just imagine these are put into the wreath. Just come out here, all right? And let me see what we have here. And we have a third one right here. And it's still a little wet, so that's why, oops, there we go. Okay. All right, so we've got 3 here, 1, 2 over here, and I think we're ready to start. So what's gonna happen is I can come around here with my colors again and finish some more of this wreathing in here, grapevines. Now we see where everything's going to be laid out, so that's going to help. And also, we're going to bring in some really pretty teal and sap green leaves, because I needed some dark leaves and some light leaves. And you will find out that it makes a really pretty arrangement to make sure that you have a few colors of green, not just one for all your leaves. That's like a common mistake when you first begin, where you think that all the leaves look good if they're just the same leaf and the same color. And that's what I've enjoyed doing as I've learned more as I've painted. Ooh, that looks better that way. All right, so there we go. Now actually, if you want your square, you can turn this, and it matters on how you paint the center of the pod is what's gonna matter as far as which way you hang it. But the same arrangement works for the corner. All right, so then above this pod is another magnolia, which is not too big, and we put another one right in here. All right, so that's gonna share with you these 3, and then the pods separated. You're gonna be able to see where to put these leaves that we're gonna do next. So let's look at those. They're these long, slender leaves. Now they can just be one long stroke, and then we pull a stem into them. And I kind of laid those all out first before I did anything else. Those and this yellow fall leaf. So let's clean out our 3/4 inch brush. And let's come in here with teal. And sap green. Okay, now what's going to happen is I'm going to pick up both of these colors, and I love working this in together into the sap green, the teal into the sap green. It gives you a really nice color. All right, so, and especially when you put on this background. So let me show you. We're going to practice right here. I did this practice sheet with a 12, but I want you to see we're going to pull down and just stand up. So pressure and stand up to the chisel, and then we pull a stem right in the middle. So it's really simple. Just practice a little bit till you put the pressure first and then lift, because what you want to end up with is a point. All right, pressure. This is where my brush started. Pressure and then lift to the point. And make sure you have a little eraser so you can wipe this off as you go. All right. Now let's come around here and let's add some of these pretty leaves in here. All right. Pick up more paint. And we pick up paint almost every stroke as we're going here. But the first thing I want to do over here is I'm going to go upward. So I'm going to push and slide to a point. And I'm going to go ahead and put one This is your 3/4 inch flat brush with the 2 colors loaded on it. And see how brilliant that looks? And I bet you didn't even notice that that was in there when you looked at it all decorated and all finished. All right, so then I'm gonna put a couple out here that are gonna go between, see, I'm gonna go over that again. That's where that chalk is. All right, and then another one out here. So I always do what I want is a larger leaf first. And then next to him, we're going to put 1, 2, 3. All right. And then on the other side, I have a few pressure lift, a few that are going to hang into the painting over here. All right, so when you look at this and you see there's simple steps building it, it's going to make it really easy for you to see and have confidence that you can do this. All right, I have a few of these outside of the big magnolia. A little bit here and there. Let's put some, I left room. This is important, you have room to put some along here. So see, now my wreath's not going to show terribly much, but just enough so you have no doubt it's a wreath. All right, so I can stop there because we can put more in later as we go. I'm going to wash this brush, and I want to do one more thing before we start adding more detail on here, and that is I want to come into this area and with a 3/4 inch brush, and I'm going to base coat my pods in. See this base coating? You base coat that shape. So this is burnt umber, and I have my 3/4 inch brush, and so you have the oval on the top, and then you're going to pull down and fill this in. Now I want this to dry before we put all the detail on it, so I would come right in here and get those all in first. See, you do your oval, and then this kind of looks like the shape of a bell the way it comes back. And here's another one, because I will have the magnolias being painted in there, and then this detail will pop on these when they're all dry. Okay. All right, now what I've done is I've done a step out so that we can switch out, and I'll be right back and have the step out here ready to go. Okay, so I already have your pods that are dry. So a step out to me is I needed, because of time, for this to be dry, and I started with some leaves, which I'm going to show you how to do, and I even have some done under there that I'm going to show you later, but I don't want you to look at it right now, so I'm hiding it. All right, so what I'm going to share with you next is, let's do these little brown burnt umber leaves, which are the same as the long ones that we did. Long one stroke, short one stroke. And these are kind of like shadow leaves the way I did it. All right, so I use floating medium and burnt umber. Now, what I like to share with you is I put 1 on the point, and then I put, you could see number 2 and number 3 down, so you have a triangle again. So I'm wiping that off, and I'm ready to add some of these in here for you. Now, so what I'm doing, I have the medium and the burnt umber, and I'm gonna do, there's the one I told you, and then we do 2, 3. And they can be wiped off really easy if you're not happy with your shape, but even though they're floating ones, you still want to pull a stem into it while it's wet, because it kind of takes the paint off. Watch, 1, and then I pull the stem into it. All right, so that's all those leaves, and I'm gonna come back maybe at the end and add 1 or 2 more as I paint and see how I want to do that. But what I want to share with you next is that I did a magnolia all done here, and some of these little lantern like flowers. I love them. They're orange and they're round, but they have a little point on them. They're kind of transparent or thin shelled. And then show you how pretty to make the pods, the seed pods. All right, so those are our next steps. But I'm gonna, first of all, look at this magnolia and let's go over how I turn the petals. All right, for a newbie, that might be a little intimidating. So let me, even for some seasoned people, painters. So let me show you. I've got a dampened 3/4 inch brush. I've laid it on the paper towel and I'm ready to load. So I'm going to, if you look at this, you figure out how much is white and how much is yellow ochre. So wicker white's on the edge, yellow ochre's here. And this is how the blend should be. So that should help you see, all right, that I am picking up 2/3 of the yellow ochre and 1/3 of the white. See that? So then I work it in, push really hard, really quick to work it into the bristles. All right, and you need that to happen because as you're stroking these nice little strokes, you don't want the paint, the bristles to split. Now I pick up more paint and then I lightly push because I'm just getting it on the outside of the brush like I want it, okay? And we can keep picking up white and flatten it there and we'll be ready to do our next stroke. All right, so now watch what happens. The easiest one is this one over here where I'm gonna touch and I do a little bit of a wave, no wiggle. Then I'm gonna start here and see I get a shape. Now here's the trick. You're gonna slide up, stand up, and then I'm gonna lean it in and go down. See how it makes the petal looks like it turns? Now you need to practice this a little bit. Don't think, oh, I'm gonna just be able to do it easily. It might take a little bit of practice or you might get it right away. All right, so let's try this one. This one's really tricky, okay? So, and you don't have to have any rolls, but rolls are fun. So I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna go up around this way. Gonna come here and then I'm gonna lay my brush over. And when you're laying it over, I want you to watch this again. I'm coming up to here and laying it over means pressure and lift. All right, so let's go do it again with fresh white so you can see better. All right, so make sure I have good white on the edge. This is an important one to practice, okay? So I'm coming here up, stand up, and when I go to lean, all you have to do is pressure, lift. You don't have to do anything fancy. Pressure, lift. And that gives you that movement in the petals. So I want you to practice each one of them. This is the one I didn't do yet. All right. Okay, so I came up here. I went out this way, stand up, up, out this way. When I go out this way, I push, stand up, push, stand up. So you're just not like making it fold like that. It's not going to do what you want it to do. So it's release pressure, put pressure. And all you're doing is taking the brush and leaning this way or this way, but I'm up on the chisel, right here, the chisel. When I come around, I pressure and stand up, all right? And that gives us the folded look. Like I said, look, none of these have the curl in it, those two, the roll, but some of them do. So I laid it right on my wet, okay? So let's do one first. All right, so we're gonna do this big one. Now I'm gonna come here first with the 3/4 flat, and you saw how I loaded it, and I'm gonna pull it back. Now see that dry look there? That's probably mostly because of the chalk, so I'm gonna go over it one more time, pressure, and stand up. All right, now on top of this is going to be another petal, but I want to get it nice and smooth before I start. All right, you see I pick up lots of paint. Now I'm going to overlap this one a little bit, And keep that white on the outside edge. It's dry there, so I'm going to come back around. This is a big petal, so I'm going to smooth it out inside. There we go. Now this edge isn't rough, it's just got chalk there. You see how much I'm pulling up paint? Lots. But I'm doing, look, I'm picking up paint, and then when I do this extra blending, it's blending that color on the brush. All right, so I'm going to come up here. So make sure that you're liking how much yellow ochre is there, how much white. All right, so what I don't need to do is I don't need to have the whole center filled in, by the way. I know it might look like I did, but I didn't. So then I'm going to come here. Now I do need some of this filled in, you see that? Just in case it peeps through. Now these aren't difficult so far because I'm not asking you to roll it. Not that rolling's difficult, but it's a little tricky sometimes. All right, so I've got one more before I start getting a little fancier. All right. Okay, so imagine we're just going to see those outside edges. I do like to make one petal look like it's going over the other. Now my original has way more white. And now's when I can come back and do that. Look at that. I can just add more white on the edges. And some of that I can tell you for a fact I came and added a little bit more white afterwards. But let's do it now because we can see it now. And when I'm doing my original, sometimes I don't realize how white I want it. So I was maybe happy with it, but then I needed to come back and add a little bit more. Okay? So the ones that are on top, some of these just kind of fall back on the magnolia blossom, but these on top are the ones that kind of curl up lots of times. So I'm going to come around and get pretty white in there. All right, so this is going to be just showing this much, and then we have a petal that's going to go on top. See how much paint I'm picking up? Lots. I do need this blossom this one right here needs to come over this. All right. Let's come right here and restroke this. See, there's no mistakes. I want you to see that it's easy to go back and touch it up. All right, now let's do the center. So I'm picking up 1/3 wicker white, 2/3 yellow ochre. Now right in here, I want to determine where my center is. So let's pick up our burnt umber, and we're going to have the center because I'm going to face, I'm just putting the brown center right there, burnt umber, just so you see where it goes, because that's going to help you decide where to make the next petal. So this petal right here is going to come up, over this way, and remember, pressure. See, it rolls a little bit. All right, so I'm going to come right in here. Push down, stand up, lay it over. And you don't want the same side to curl each time. So let's say I'm going to come right in here and let's get some more white. Right in here, push and stand up. So that one's a little bit more, it's a flatter one. And then the last one, all the way around and roll this right here, okay? And when we shade and all, it's going to make it look really good. I'm not happy with this one, so look, I can just stroke right over it. Here we go. I already have the one here, so let's pick up and let's start doing this last little magnolia. So sometimes I use a gray tone. This time I thought, would it be in November, I wanted more of the fall colors. But I also have used like a butter pecan type color, a tan color, for my shading instead of this yellow ochre. All right. So push, stand up, and roll in. All right. And the other thing that people asked, can I just go to a smaller brush now? And it looks like it was not a separate flower, but the original flower, if you can make the whole flower with the same brush, it looks a lot more successful usually. Push down, roll over. Don't forget, this is what you need to practice. You're wiggling up, pushing down, standing up, rolling. Okay? And you can see I just put one petal back there on this one. All right, now I did have a few leaves that are made with these same colors. So I want to show you that the only difference I did with this is put some Pueblo in the middle, just a little bit. So I can pick this up and go right on top of the colors that I just used for the Magnolia. A little bit of this, Pueblo, and the yellow ochre and the wicker white. All right. So we also have those in those little pods that we're going to be doing. But what I want you to see is we're going to start way up here and start adding some of these leaves. Okay, so I'm going to go back on the teaching guide because this leaf is a little different. All right, so what I did on here is if I wanted to use the Pueblo and the burnt umber even, this is the color I used here. So see these lines? I put 2 lines like an arrow. I lay the brush down and I wiggle to the point. Now I did that right here so you could see that then I stand up, stand up, stand up, and slide to a point. So then you just turn your guide over and you're going to do the other side following those wiggles and stand up, and then you're going to pull the stem. But what happens is these 2 lines are where you start, and then you just wiggle and stand up. And that blends shades and highlights for you as you're stroking. So you get all the shades of the Pueblo, the orange tones, and the burnt umber and white, okay? So I'm going to keep that there to remind you. All right, so we're going to come back and pick up some of those colors. I might, like I said, put a teeny bit of brown. I've got yellow ochre, white. I don't want too much white. It'll take away from the leaf. But this is that pretty fall color. All right, this one got quite a bit of white. But I'm going to come right in here and do one side, and this side I can even slide. One, and then we'll do this side, and then pull a stem into there. All right. Now, remember, see, this is whiter than I wanted, so look what happens. You just stroke right over it until it gets the color you want it to be. No paper towels wiping off your leaves. All right, so then I'm going to come in here, right here, and it doesn't matter that I put those teal and sap green and teal in there. If I decide I want this one in here, I'll just go right over it. All right, and let's pick up some more Pueblo. And I want one right in here somewhere. So let's just come right in here. Look how pretty those colors are. All right. Are you having fun? Have you learned anything new? I'd love to find out. You've got to write and let us know. Go to our Let's Paint page and share what's your favorite part of Let's Paint. Chris and Andy are over there all the time trying to get new, innovative things for y'all to see. All right. Okay, so now we're going to see the next step. And I think it's the Chinese lantern that we're going to put on there next. So to do that, I'm going to go around and just take the yellow ochre and the pueblo and do the shapes and let it sit for a few minutes and then come back and shade it. I'll make sure I get all that paint out of your brush so it's ready to go. All right, so here's your 12 flat, and let's pick up these two colors right here, right next to each other. Let's work that in. Remember, yellows are transparent, so it's going to be real thin. All right, so I'm going to go one side and then the other, so let's do this together. All right, they hang, so I think that's what's really fun. These are going to hang this way. So I'm going to go just like this, and then come to a point, and on this side come to a point. So what I want you to see is that this has a stem that's going to curve around like this, so they're hanging. So I added a teeny bit of white so that I get a really nice color here. And everywhere I want one of those, I have some that came out here underneath this magnolia. So 1, 2 simple strokes until we come back and shade them in. All right. I made it a little bit brighter so that it'd stand out there. And let's do a couple more right here. Don't you like learning a new flower? I think it's really fun. A new pot or a new stroke to put inside, because this would look really pretty inside of a floral arrangement too. Having some of these added besides a wreath. Okay, so I had 2 more down here, and then I'm going to show you how to decorate these guys. We're going to have a couple in here, and it comes to a point, and it goes to a point. All right, these are almost actual, with a wreath this big, these are almost actual the size of the magnolias and these Japanese lanterns. Okay, so I'm going to pick up pueblo, and let's get more of the daffodil yellow. So we're going to come right in here, and we're going to go 1, 2, because they have little segments. And then I turn the brush around. Now, you notice I picked up the color that's underneath, and then the color that I want to shade it with. Okay? So I'm going 1 out here, then another little bit of a, they're kind of like, I don't know, they're not octagon, but they have these ridges. See how it gets a nice coat when you double load it again? And it reinforces the pueblo. So ridge, it's kind of like we do our pumpkins, but we need this last one in the middle. And all they have on these are a stem to hold them. And when you're doing something that's got detail like this, make sure you take your time to really put those segments in there. There we go. So let's go with the 3/4 inch brush to the seed pod. All right, so now I want you to see what happens is that I shade it instead of with floating medium. I can use floating medium, I've used both, but I came and shaded around this with the Pueblo to give the shading inside of there, and then I did seed pods, seeds inside. So let me show you what happens here. I'm going to pick up the burnt umber, and we need more. All right. And I've shared a couple of ways to float. You could take your 3/4 inch flat, and you could add floating medium, and you could side load a little bit of the Pueblo. Now you can do this with floating medium. All right. So I hold the mediums on the inside of the pod, and Pueblo is on the left side there. And then as you go around, it just shadows that, all right? But what I'm gonna share with you is you can also float with the paint. So I can use burnt umber because that's what it's base coated with, and I can pick up my Pueblo and the burnt umber, and now every time I need some more, I'm gonna come in and just pick up the Pueblo, all right? Because the burnt umber is going to help me shade and float that color. You see that? All right. Now I also, so let's do that on the top of each one of these. I want to dip here, but I'm going to blend it there. See that? Hold it to the outside edge. That gives you just depth there. So I don't have medium, I just have the burnt umber and the Pueblo, and that's what I did around here, so I'm ready. All right, I had 3. All right, so if I wash my brush, again, this is another shading that we're gonna do. You put the whole chisel, all right, the whole chisel into the Pueblo. All right, so I'm gonna go to the outside edge of the brown, and I'm just gonna pull the shadow. Can y'all see that? So see that highlight? I'm gonna pull that highlight across on top of the burnt umber. So here's a highlight, pull, pull. I'm touching it like a feather, very light, all right? And the same thing happens. I can bring it from here. See, I didn't have to go get more paint because it only takes a little bit. All right, so see how they stand out so much better? All right, so now I'm gonna go to my 12 and see how to do those seeds. It's gonna be easy for you if you watch this. We're gonna pick up the Pueblo and some yellow ochre, and we're gonna make these little C's in here. So Pueblo on the whole brush, number 12 flat, side load some yellow ochre. Side load means I'm going right next to it. I dipped and then I'm side stroking this yellow ochre. So then what's gonna happen is I'm gonna go and make a C, and I'm gonna stagger these guys. And they don't all have to be perfect, you just want some of them to be in there. And I've got a little trick that's gonna make this look good quick. All right. This one's gonna turn sideways, or I can go like this and get to it easier. All right, so what happens with this is that it's stroking and highlighting, look, a highlight at the same time. All right, we have one more. So what that's going to give you is the highlight at the top edge. And then we're going to just take our brush, clean it out. I can actually even go to a smaller one if I want. And this is back to our 8. And I'm going to pick up just burnt umber, which is going to be inside the pod. So look, I just come right in there, and that's the seed. It's inside. Right in there. All right, see how it already has a glow to it? Little round seed that goes right in front. Okay, last little one here. Okay, so let's look at the worksheet again. I want you to make sure that you see these stems. So I kind of mix the brown sometimes with sap green, and so I can get that shade, but you got to use a 2-script liner. So let's get the sap and some burnt umber, and I'm just going to roll those together. And this script liner is the only brush that I ever wet to use. But I want you to see, let's move this out of the way, that we're going to grab this pod and pull it over. So grab it and curve it, all right? So I made that little bit of paint. It's kind of nice to go across the leaf. Do you see that? And this one you don't see much. I can make a little bit there. I made those kind of close. So now what I want to share with you, see it already highlights and shades it in one stroke. If you feel like those pods aren't standing out, this one definitely you can see. But I have taken the burnt umber and I have done the outside shading of this a little bit so it pops more. So you can do that too. That's what I did over here. All right, so let's see what we've got next to do. We are doing some of these fun little leaves on top that are like little bits of fern. Remember, we've done this leaf, this one. It can also be green, so I can add a couple of those in there, or we can. And then this is a sprig of leaves, and it's kind of like a ferny sprig. And instead of going out, these pull in. See the arrows? They pull in. And what I did was use an 8 on that. And so when we're doing it, I'm going to pick up, I'm going to use a liner just to show you where I'm going to put it. But we're going to use the happy green, which I don't have out here yet. All right, so here's some happy green. And I'm going to mix that in here with a little bit of wicker white and happy green, get this light green color. And then a teeny bit of sap, because I want it just a light shade. And so everything is darker. That's going to kind of make it pop. And you want to put this right there so you see over here on the dry stuff, so you can see the direction of those little sprigs. So I have some coming in here. I'm just going to put them in here around places, some short, some long. Now that's a perfect, I took some chalk off there, but that's a perfect little sprig to put in here and in here. So all I'm just going to show you is that if I kind of lay out some of the spots that I want it, so I can see if I've got a balance. All right. And I haven't put any up here yet. So a little bit here, a little bit of there. And let's pick up some more white and move it over here. And some sap green, wicker white, sap green, and a little bit of happy green. All right. So now watch what happens. I'm going to push down and lift, and I keep moving that. I want it right there so you can see it. So I do 1, 2, 3. I have one out here, one there. And let's do a little one out here and there. See how this is, it's a nice different shade, kind of fresh shade of green. And I'm not worrying about what's underneath it. I'm just coming through here and adding some extra little green. Okay, see how those sprigs really add to it? and I don't want to cover my seed pod, but let's do another one here. Push, lift, lift. Now I'm going to come out here and bring another cluster from here. All right. Let's come way out here. So I push, lift, and so what's happening is it's getting the round area out there, and it gets really slim when I pull it back. And it's like a light, airy little twig, a sprig. Miss Chris says they're sprigs. All right. See how I just like to put them in different little locations around the painting? And I have a little mixture there, but every once in a while I might want to go and add more to my mixture. Now see, I don't even have to think. If you go ahead and do this in advance, I don't even have to think where to put them because I've already decided that with the stem. All right, that's a little trick that helps you, because I like kind of creating and not worrying. So see how that made that pop? I have a few little tricks that make it pop besides that. So just, I can't wait to show you. One of my favorite little tools is Treasure Gold. And when we start putting some of that in here, it's gonna really add to your piece, especially when you walk past it and it's hanging on your door or even inside your house somewhere. That gold shimmers when the light hits it. All right, so this one I didn't put the stem first. You need to put this. This is also when I need to get more paint, new mix. So I'm gonna pick up my white and add some more here. Okay, then get the sap. And see, it makes this shade that's just perfect. All right, and so the teal added to it, each little color that we're adding, I think, makes a difference in this whole look. All right, let's make a stem here. Push, lift. Now, it's real important, look at this. Instead of going straight like that, put a little bit of pressure, 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 pull, pressure, pull. All right, now this I can still come out more. All right. All right, so I'm gonna keep coming around and adding little bits. All right, so I think you get the picture. I'll show you the finished piece at the end where it's got all these little fun little fern on here, little sprigs. All right, now, so what's gonna happen? Let's do our centers. Now, when I'm doing the center, we're gonna get that in, and this is the Magnolia center is the brown, which I was showing you. I kind of base coated that in so we'd see it. And then we're gonna pull little chisel strokes, just like this, chisel. So I touch, pull, and I'm gonna make them shape into the pod that's in the middle. You can see that got kind of muddy, so let me show you. I'm gonna go ahead and stroke over that one so you can see. But the great part of this, I'm gonna have this facing right up towards the top. All right, and this one's a smaller one. See where the base is? It's not quite a gumdrop because a gumdrop isn't pointed at the top, but I want you to see also that while that's sitting a few minutes, is that you can take some medium on this 12 and I can side load a little bit of burnt umber. All right, so now what happens is that I can come in here with little bits and shade, a little teeny bit, or I can take away some of that. It got too heavy. All right, just a little bit. All right, now also after I do a little some shading in here is also really good to come under, and I also like to come right in here, see under this, so you see the roll. And because I want this to separate there, I can pull some brown out from here. I can also shade more in here, all right, from inside. That just adds depth to it. So I like to bring, see some of this in here. Then I let it shadow to nothing. All right, see how that starts getting you more depth in here? A little bit in here. Well, the thing that people do, painters do, is that they get too carried away with around every single petal. So, and you don't go around the whole petal. See, that just gives me the curve, the rolled over petal. And this one's really dry, so it's easy for me to go over there. Because actually this is way better when you let it dry some. Because look, I can come in here and put this in here. If I don't like it, I can just take and wipe it all off. All right, so I'm getting burnt umber, and I'm gonna pick up the white. So let's put a spot right here. Burnt umber and wicker white. I'd like to get a spot going so I can keep coming over there to it. All right, so look. I'm gonna go little teeny strokes and pull them inward. They cover the edge of the brown, the burnt umber, and the wicker white makes nice little pulled strokes, and they're like little seeds in there. And it's really hard inside this little pod, these little seeds. And you can have new magnolias, all right? Little teeny strokes. See, I made it so muddy, the one I had done. See how much brighter? You want that center to really pop and be pretty. Burnt umber and wicker white. And I keep putting that little bit of white on the outside. And sometimes I'm just picking up white, not brown, because the burnt umber's in there already, and you don't need that as often. But you need that dark in there so that the white, there we go. All right, see how that pops? So I want to add a fun little additive to all of the painting here. One of them are these little gold little leaves. All right, let's take Treasure Gold and a lightly dampened sponge. I barely wet it any. And I want to pick up some of this. Now you can leave it just like this, but I want to start up here where it's going to be covered. And I like to come around the edges and make little circular motions. I want to see if you see that. You got to see if you see it first. See that? And guess what? I'm really bad about this. You got to let it dry first. Let everything dry so you don't mess it up. I can tap it out. Little circles, and it just really adds to your piece. But then what I want to share with you here is I'm going to take the smaller brush. I've used a 6 before. This is an 8. And little teeny gold leaves in here will really add to our look. And this is the same leaf that we practiced on your worksheet for the shadow leaves. You remember that? Now look, 1, 2, 3. And sometimes I don't put stems on these, sometimes I do. But I like you to overlap them. Look where they overlap across darker leaves in different areas. We're going to do a little cluster here, and then I'm going to move back to my original and show you how fun this looks when you're all done. Isn't that great? All right, so let me show you how wonderful the luster of the treasure gold is. Now see the edges, how the edges look, and then all the way over here. It gives it a rich luster. Treasure gold is water-based, not solvent-based, so it makes it really nice for cleanup. There's no smell, and it makes it a rich look when you're all done. And there's other colors that I love besides just gold. Isn't that fun? For all of you who are following along with me, be sure to go to plaidonline.com/Let's Paint for those Let's Paint supplies. And I would love to have you share your pictures on our Facebook community, which is Let's Paint with Plaid. And be sure to use the hashtag Let's Paint Challenge. I'll see you next month for the next Wreath of the Month lesson.